Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're at the Mahaffie Stagecoach stop.
And it's the only stop on the Santa Fe Trail that remains in operation. It's located in Olathe, Kansas, and admission is $7 for adults and $5 for children if they have the living history demonstrations, which usually run from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And as you can see, there is a lot to see. But first, we're headed straight for the house. The house in front of us was built in 1865 by James and Lucinda Mahaffie. They had moved from Indiana to Olathe in 1857, and the next year they had their timber frame house relocated here to the farm, and they lived in it until the present house was completed. And here's a stagecoach dropping off some passengers in the same spot they would have back in the 1860s. We are in the foyer of the house, and the staircase was originally to the left, but it was moved when they put the addition on in the back in the 1900s. We're now in the parlor, and the Mahaffies would have used this for formal occasions such as weddings, funerals, if they had any important visitors. This is the family room, and to the left there are stairs that lead to the basement, which we will get to shortly. This room was used just like we use our living rooms today. And it is a very hot day today, and when I came in, I asked the attendant why it was so cool in the house, and she said it was because they had just put air conditioning in. Okay, back in the foyer, and we are going to head upstairs to the bedrooms. And like I said, this staircase had been moved 90 degrees when they put that addition on. And if we look out this window, you can kind of see the addition back there. And unfortunately, they do not have that addition open because it does not relate to the 1860s stagecoach stop. This is James and Lucinda's room. Now, they had 8 children and 7 survived to adulthood. There were 3 boys and 4 girls. Look at that dress. Flip around here, and this is the girls' room. And it also says that Lucinda's mother stayed in this room. And this is the boys' room. Okay, we are coming back downstairs, and we are in the foyer on the main floor, and we are going to head down to the basement. So the farm sits on the Santa Fe, Oregon, and California trails, and travelers started using this farm as a stop. By 1864, the Barlow, Sanderson and Company stage line had a designated stop at the farm. The Mahaffies fed between 50 to 100 people a day, and Miss Mahaffie would serve dishes like venison and chestnut pie, buffalo beef stew, dried peach pies, and of course, bacon and eggs. She always had stew on hand because if it needed to be, it could be watered down and stretched out. And that is the staircase that leads upstairs to the family room, and that is how the family got down to the basement. And that white door that I'm pointing at, that is the entrance. That's how the passengers came in to eat.
Okay, so this is the back porch, and this is the section that was added onto. So this is the original building. Stables. We'll go check those out. We'll just start over here, shall we?
In the winter months, the Mahaffies would cut ice from their pond and store it in here, and they would put their perishable items in this. So this is basically a big old refrigerator.
Oh my gosh, that scared me. Okay. Well, there's no ice in here today. I don't know if there's anything up here we can really see. Oh, there's a wasp.
I don't know what was on the second floor of the ice house because the door was locked, but from up here we can get a really good view of the house, and you can definitely see the addition in the back.
Check it out. Up in smoke. So this is the smokehouse. Yeah, you see a big old fire pit right there. Hooks to hang your meat. Or if you're from Kentucky, your tobacco.
The Santa Fe Trail ran from Independence, Missouri to Santa Fe, Mexico, and long before the pioneers made their way west, the Santa Fe Trail was an international trade route. In 1864, Barlow, Sanderson and Company Stagecoach contracted with the Mahaffies as a designated stop. Here they would change horses, drivers, and mend coaches. There are 3 structures on the property that are original: the house, the ice house, and this peg barn. And this peg barn outdates both of the other ones.
Just a barn.
We are headed into that big, ginormous barn that we saw at the beginning of the video, and it is the Heritage Barn, and it was built in 2014, and they have 4 wagons in here that I came to see. Stagecoach travel would have been very unpleasant. Passengers had to share the coach with the mail, and it was very cramped. It would have been hot and bumpy. You only averaged 5 to 9 miles per hour, and so you went about 120 miles a day. It was also very expensive. It was 10 to 15 cents a mile for a short journey, or 200 for a one-way ticket. And that's when a common laborer only made $5 to $10 a day. This is a 19th century version of a food truck. So cowboys were bringing their cattle up the Santa Fe Trail, and this wagon would have gone ahead of them on the trail and found camp for the night, and they would have set up. So by the time the cowboys arrived, they had a hot meal waiting for them. This is a typical wagon used by the pioneers. All of their possessions would have been loaded in this wagon, and they suggested that you bring 400 pounds of food per person. Unless you were sick, you walked the whole 2,000 miles, and it took about 6 months because you could only go about 15 to 20 miles a day. And this coach was used for shorter journeys. It was a lighter weight and it got through the mud a whole lot easier.
Laundry. The American housekeeper's hardest problem. Tells us exactly what we're supposed to do here. We're supposed to soak it, wash it, second wash, rinse, rinse, add bluing, and starch. And then there's the wringer that you would wring it out with. No, thank you. Oh, look at that. Number one, treat stains. That's the ironing board. Boil, only white items. I bet this was a hot job. I bet this was an incredibly hot job.
Laundry was a massive task. It could take 2 to 3 days to finish it. And when you were finished with the washing, you still had to iron. And you had to heat those irons on the stove. And they were hot. And they weighed between 5 and 10 pounds apiece.
Chickens only. And there's some chickens in there. Ah, chickens. That is a pretty fancy chicken coop. Oh, I bet that's the outhouse. Imagine they went through a lot of chickens here and eggs. Yeah. So it's just a little vegetable garden. Oh, here's a Merkel Mahaffie, born November 25th, 1866, died August 2nd, 1867. Oh, 21. So that's just a memorial. He is actually buried with his family in the Olathe cemetery. But this was the only child. I think they had 8 children. This is the only child that they lost, which is kind of amazing.
And that is it for our visit to the Mahaffie Stagecoach stop here in Olathe, Kansas. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and as usual, I will see you guys next Thursday.